last 6 to 8 years, I've been experimenting with baking sourdough bread. So the basic dough is what I want to concentrate on today. So first of all, we're going to have the bread flour, and that's going to be 900 grams. We'll add that to the mix. Now I'm going to stir it thoroughly. Let me go ahead and give you a close-up of that. Now some people add the yeast directly into the flour, but I like to mix it with the water to give you a more consistent, even distribution of the yeast. There we go, that's about right. Now into this mix, I'm going to go ahead and add the yeast. This is what I'm going to mix now for the basic sourdough bread. Now it has enough water to be absorbed by most of the flour, and what you want to watch out for at the very bottom where you're moving your spatula along to mix the water with the flour, you'll have dried spots. You have these powdery areas, so that's got to be thoroughly mixed. All right, looks pretty good. And this is where a lot of people that like to use their hands go in there and mix their dough with their hands. I've never been a fan of that. Later on, when the dough becomes more firm, then I will use my hands. Okay, we're getting close to where I need to be. I'm going to slide this over, get a new surface here. Now what I'm going to do with this, I've got to let this sit for 3 hours. So once the gluten has set up a little bit and formed the links that allow you to manipulate that dough, then you can start flipping it over and getting the layers that you want. The more layers you establish, the better the air distribution within the dough itself. Now that all of this is mixed together, I've got a nice looking dough. No dried areas. I'm going to go ahead and put this plastic bag over the top of it. I'm going to let it sit there for 3 hours. I prefer using plastic simply because it's easy. I don't have to worry about a towel drying out in the course of that 3 hours. So the plastic keeps the dough from drying out. Also, that gives it a nice environment for the gluten to form. So while that dough is setting up, I'm going to talk about the containers that you might want to put the dough into. There are many on the market, different shapes, different sizes. Some have liners, some don't. Most of these come with liners, but I found that if you use the liners, which many bakeries do, it doesn't give you much of a personality. It doesn't add anything to the bread. So I strip the liners off and I use it basically in the raw form with the cane construction here. And the reason I like that is because when you take the bread out of here to bake, it has that beautiful ribbing effect. And when you score it with your razor blade to make your design, you've got the striations of the basket that you can see. You've got the scoring marks that you want to put in, and all of those combined give you a really nice decorative quality. For my taste, I go with the proofing baskets without the liners. It will give you enough dough for 2 basic round loaves. Now what will happen with this is that when the dough goes in here, if you use this, it gives you a pretty good sized loaf of bread. And once you put that into the oven, then you'll have oven spring, which will make it a little bit bigger. So the bread becomes fairly large. What I prefer are these slimmer ones, and they're basically for baguettes that are, I guess they're about 12, 13 inches long. And the reason I like these is because in my conventional oven, I don't have a baker's oven, I have a conventional oven. I have baking tiles on the top shelf and the bottom shelf. It gives me room for 8 of these at one time. So with the baking tiles, I have the opportunity to make 8 loaves of bread per baking cycle. Now, How long do you bake this? Well, for the basic sourdough bread that I have here, 20 to 25 minutes is usually about where I are monitoring it closely. Still want that nice golden brown look on the crust, but some people like it a little bit darker, some people like it a little bit lighter. And take it out of the oven, then you have to put it onto a metal rack to allow it to cool down. Now, most of the moisture from the bread comes out of the bottom, and so you have to make sure that you have a metal grill that will keep the bread elevated and allow it to cool down. What I'm going to do with this bowl scraper is go ahead and scrape the dough away from the edge of the bowl. I want it to be independent of the sides. And once I have it in the middle there, then I'll go ahead and wet my hands, start folding it over. Turn it, fold, fold it over. You want to have a good, even distribution of the air pockets. I believe they call that the crumb. So when you slice a bread in half, you look at the crumb to see how dispersed the air pockets are. All right, that's a pretty good start. It's released from the sides of the container. And it's good now for another 45 minutes. I'm going to leave it there. But right now I can take a piece of this and thin it out like a pizza dough and basically see light through it. So it's almost where it needs to be. All right, so we'll let that sit for about a half hour. And when we take it out the next time, we'll go ahead and layer it and fold it over several times, and that will prevent any settling of contents you might put in there, like berries or nuts. I like to do the layering about every half hour, maybe 2 to 3 times. The more you layer, the fluffier the bread. First, I'm going to sprinkle the surface with a little bit of flour. Let's see how this comes out. I don't want too much flour on this, just enough to keep it from sticking to the surface. All right, now I'm going to roll it and thin it a little bit so I can start partitioning it. All right, what I'm looking for on the scale, since I want 4 equal parts, I'm going to start with the halfway mark. Once the dough has been cut, I can go ahead and shape them and prepare them to go into the baskets. All right, now I'll roll out the dough to match the basket shape and repeat the process for each of the loaves. Shaping these loaves of bread is always a long process, but if you're making very small baguettes, it's even longer because you have multiple of pieces of dough that you have to handle. I put the basket there to get an idea of where I'm going with this. Now, the part that I'll be putting down is going to be the top when I reverse it. Enough rice flour in there to keep it from sticking. These are going to be covered with seeds. Shaping these loaves of bread is always a long process, but if you're making very small baguettes, it's even longer because you have multiple of pieces of dough that you have to handle. And go ahead and cover it with a piece of plastic. Same process as a big mixing bowl. A nice bubble over the top. So if you decide to go into bread making as a profession, be prepared for long hours, early mornings, but it's very satisfying and a lot of people love it. Okay, just a few more. Just a few more. Well, I'm almost done here. I think I'll go on to the next step. Apply the egg wash. Now this is using the white and the yellow of the egg, which will give the bread a very nice color. Let's put that down here. I want to make sure I cover all of it. The first one I'm going to do is sunflower seed. And the best way I've found to distribute this is simply using your hand to channel the seeds where you want it to go. This one looks like it has a pretty good coverage. Next one is going to be, all right, let me get this going here. Okay, got two pieces of parchment paper. I'm going to go ahead and coat that. Do a little bit over here because I don't want the bread to stick to the I don't want the bread to stick to the paper itself. So let's go ahead and unload this one. There we go. That's one. All right, those are done. I'll put those to the side. Okay, that's good for sesame. Now there's a multi-seed. I'll go ahead and do that one. Now this has got flax seeds, it's got some pumpkin seeds, it's got a number of different things in here, sunflower seeds. It's a mix. All right, here we go. Nice, came out nicely. All right, I'm preparing the bread to go into the oven. First two go in. Since they're on the parchment paper, they're easy to slide and move around in on the tiles. Next two are ready to go in. You want to keep about an inch and a half space if you can between the bread because they do swell a little bit as they go. A little water in the bottom of the oven creates steam, which makes the bread rise a little bit easier. Now I'm taking out the bread, removing the parchment paper, rotating the bread around to get a different heat exposure. And I do that in turn with each one of those. It's important to distribute that the heat a little bit differently on the bread because then you can have bread that looks pretty much the same all the way around. I enjoy baking sourdough bread for a couple of different reasons. First of all, when you make your own bread, it's fresh. You can make whatever you want. You can share it with the family. You can share it with your neighbors. It's one of those things that's a very satisfying feeling when you are giving bread away to people that truly appreciate what you make. If you've enjoyed watching this video, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and remember, keep your spirits high and your tools sharp. And we'll see you in the next video.